Welcome to Motivational Monday. This is Fed Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today, I want to break down motivation as a science. But before we start, make sure to like, subscribe, and do share, especially if you find value in this presentation. So here's the thing. No matter what you want to work on in life, whether it's personal, financial, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, whatever quadrant you want to break it into, there's one or two ways you could work towards the motivation to get to those goals. It's either goal setting or strive setting. Now, I want to argue that you want to be on this side. You want to be strive setting as opposed to goal setting. And here's why. Okay, so many a time when we're setting up, let's discuss goals first. So many a time when you're setting up a goal, what ends up happening is that you have a goal, okay, whatever it is, and it has to be quantitative, not qualitative, because quantitative I could actually measure, whereas qualitative I can't. So for example, if I want to create a enthusiastic, upbeat type of environment in my office space, okay, but I only want to do that in order to get more sales. So really my quantitative goal is to have more sales. My qualitative goal is to have more fun and enjoyment in the office space in order to facilitate this. So here's the thing. You can't quantify that, okay? Where's joy exactly? Is it at here? Is it here? Or is it like not measurable? Whereas when you're looking at something that's qualitative, you could actually measure it. Okay, did I get up at 5 a.m.? It's a yes or no. Yes, check. No, X, got it, next, okay? Whatever goals I have throughout the day that I want to achieve, whether it's breathing exercise, it's meditation, it's spending a present space with whoever I'm speaking to, okay, and being present with them, that's something that I could quantify, and that's why it's so much more powerful. However, there also needs to be a time frame to it. It can't just be arbitrary. I can't be like, oh, I'm going to work on this and then that's it. No, you've got to take an accounting of the next 30 days, the next 90 days, and really commit yourself to whatever it is that you're looking to work on. That's goal setting. Now, hear me out. Okay, this is why I say goal setting fails. Either each person takes something that's way above them. Now, I've coached a lot of people, and after seeing myself and taking writing in my journal for God knows how many years, I've noticed certain things about myself. And you know, there are certain patterns that we find ourselves in, and we do it again and again and again. And you kind of say to yourself, you know, when did this pattern actually break? And it breaks when you decide to break it. And that's the short end of the actual story of it. But there's another part to this. What ends up happening is that people work on themselves on things that are a little bit too high. Okay, instead of jumping from step to step, they like to jump from floor to floor. And it doesn't work like that. When you're working on yourself, you've got to take step by step, and you've got to reward yourself as long and every time you're going in those baby steps, because those baby steps, as you turn around and you look back, you'll see that those baby steps are you're now at floor 5 or 6, and before you realize it. But the problem is that we keep on looking back after each step that we take and say, oh, it's not moving fast enough. So we get impatient. So that's one of the two reasons that most people, in my humble opinion, fail in reaching their goals, is because ostensibly they reach too quickly, too fast, and don't have the patience to go through it, me included. And that seems to be the quicksand of why they falter and then lose kind of focus. If you ever find yourself reading a book and then 3-4 pages into that chapter that you're reading, you're like, wait a second, what did I just read? And there was a certain spot that your mind turned off, that it didn't understand something, and therefore it went to something else in your mind, and your brain went somewhere else. And that's what happens to people. They disassociate from themselves because the goal that they're trying to set or the task that they're trying to do is a little bit above them, not enough engaging. Now, when you break it down to strive setting, you're engaged with the actual process. And that is much more effective because 1, you can measure it. 2, you're forced to go through that small step process. And number 3, you don't give up on the patience because you're focused on striving, not focused on the goal. And many a time, okay, and this has happened many a time, is that when I see traders coming into the market and they're like, oh, you know, to make that first $1,000 a day trade, right? That was a big threshold for our desk. And believe it or not, a lot of times when other people were making $5,000 to $1,000 a day, they would have a hard time getting to that 1,000. They'd make 980, they'd make 900, but they wouldn't get to that 1,000 because they had so much fear and so much pressure on themselves to get to that 1,000 as a social prayer. Because on the desk, most of the guys were making, $1,000 to $5,000 a day in trading in those days. And as a result, people were just trying to just make $500 or $400 a day, or just to stay positive for the day. And as a result, there was so much fear that crept on them, and they couldn't do it incrementally. They would get to that $1,000 and it would just elusively, just slip from their hands. And my argument to you is, if you do it incrementally and you just focus on the process, don't focus on the number, 9 times out of 10, and I promise you 9 times out of 10, you'll get to the number. That will be the secondary, because your focus is not to make that money. The focus is the process, and the focus is just striving. And if you focus on your game and you focus on what you're supposed to do incrementally, this will work itself out. This, meaning the profits, will work itself out. If Bill Gates had to count exactly how much money he had in the bank every single day as he was making Microsoft, could you imagine him being able to make Microsoft? He'd be too busy counting the money before he'd be able to make the next product. And then he'd let his competitors get ahead of him. Couldn't do that. He got to focus on his work. And his work was to develop software better than anybody else, best as he could. And as long as he focused on his process, as long as he focused on his product, he did the best that he could for his product. Now, what comes out afterwards usually works out. Now, I'm saying this 9 times out of 10, but as long as your strive setting, it's measurable, it's incremental, and you'll be patient enough to follow through. That's my advice for you this Monday morning. Have a good week, everybody.